The Prime Minister is cracking down on legal gun owners here in Canada. But I've got some very serious questions about Justin Trudeau's own history of gun ownership. The Liberals have just announced new, expansive firearms laws that give arbitrary powers to the RCMP without any government oversight to reclassify firearms. The bill also requires increased background checks into someone's personal history that would cover your entire lifetime. The bill also forces gun store owners to keep a de facto gun registry on behalf of the Liberals to insulate the Liberals from any sort of political fallout. I'll go over the nuts and bolts of this gun legislation in the coming days. There is just so much to it. But today I want to talk to you about the ignorance, willful or otherwise, of the very people who are pushing this gun control legislation. Here's Wendy Cukier, the founder of the Coalition for Gun Control. She went on CTV's Power Play to give the pro-gun grabber side of the argument. Just watch this. This is utterly beautiful.
We're now seeing that there are over 1 million restricted and prohibited guns in Canada. There's something wrong with this picture. We're seeing farmers in Saskatchewan using handguns. Maybe they're target shooters, maybe they're collectors, or maybe we've just gone soft on controlling handguns.
Oh my goodness, you guys. Farmers owning handguns in Saskatchewan. What sort of fresh hell are we living in? What's next? Farmers driving combines on the roads? Farmers drinking Pilsner? Saskatchewan farmers cheering on the Rough Riders? It's chaos, people. Now, I must have watched that clip like a dozen times, and I laugh every single time because poor Wendy says target practicing and collecting like it's some sort of illegal gang activity instead of literally the only thing that you can do with a handgun in this country. In case you missed it, Wendy, killing people is still illegal. But this is really demonstrative of the level of discourse coming from the pro-gun control side of the argument here in Canada. And the head gun control nitwit, well, that's the Prime Minister himself. I'm going to show you what he says today about gun laws, and then I'm going to show you some of his statements that he made in the past that have really left me with some very serious questions about the Prime Minister's own gun ownership and his responsible behaviors, or frankly, lack thereof. This is what the Prime Minister tweeted upon the announcement of his brand new gun control laws. We are also introducing stronger and more rigorous background checks on gun sales. If you want to buy a gun, by law, you'll have to show a license at the point of purchase. Right now, that's not a requirement. What? It is absolutely a requirement that you show your license at the point of purchase. In my experience, most gun retailers won't take a gun out of the case to show you unless you show them a valid PAL, that's a possession or acquisition license, or an RPAL, a restricted possession and acquisition license. You can't buy ammunition without showing your PAL here in Canada. It's the law. Here it is right from the RCMP website about transferring ownership of a firearm from one person to another. So either selling, gifting, or trading a gun. A firearm can only be transferred to one of the following: an adult 18 years of age or older with a possession and acquisition license that is valid for that class of firearm, a business, museum, or other organization with a firearms business license, or a public service agency like a police force, police academy, certain government departments, or government agencies. You see, being in possession of a firearm you do not have the appropriate level of licensing for is a very, very serious offense. So is selling a firearm to someone who doesn't have the appropriate level of licensing for that specific firearm. And the only way for someone to uncover if that person has the appropriate level of licensing is to have them present their PAL or their RPAL. Anyway, the Prime Minister's stupid tweet that was completely and legally wrong prompted a swarm of businesses and other interested entities to take to the internet and correct him. My personal Facebook feed, unsurprisingly I'm sure, is pretty gun store, sporting goods store, and hunting show heavy. And I saw a heck of a lot of backlash directed at the Prime Minister. Here's Wolverine Guns and Tackle in beautiful Red Deer, Alberta, calling Trudeau's tweet 100% incorrect in every way, shape, and form. They said they would lose their business license if they operated in the way Trudeau suggests that they do. Here is Barton's Big Country, an outdoor sporting goods store in Grand Prairie, Alberta. They called Trudeau's tweet an absolute lie and a bold-faced attempt to sway the uninformed vote, and then they finished with a shame on you. Here is the gun dealer in New Brunswick. They call themselves Atlantic Canada's largest firearms store. And they said if Trudeau walked into their store to purchase a firearm without presenting a valid PAL, they wouldn't be able to sell him guns or ammo. And nationally broadcast hunting show Canada in the Rough had this to say. So in your mind, is Justin Trudeau simply not aware of such an important law, even though he just finished announcing changes to the existing gun laws? Or is he trying to deceive those who don't know any better? Here's what I think. Sometimes I think Trudeau's just not bright enough to be sinister, but I do know for sure the Prime Minister preys on the ignorance of the mainstream media. Most of the mainstream media, they don't really know all that much about guns and gun laws and law-abiding gun owners like me and a lot of you. And so Trudeau assumed he could just take to Twitter for everyone to see and spout something that was either a lie or completely rooted in his own ignorance. But the facts remain. There are around 2 million Canadians with some level of gun licensing, meaning they know the laws and they've taken all the courses they need to. Did Trudeau really think that none of those 2 million of us would speak up and say something to correct the record when he had it so wrong? But Trudeau's complete and total ignorance or lie about gun laws in Canada, you decide which one it is, reminded me of an article I read in the Hill Times nearly 7 years ago. In that article, Trudeau presents himself as a gun owner, as someone who registered his long guns when we needed to do that. He presents himself as someone who took that PAL course and passed it, which also means that he should have known about the requirement to present your PAL to buy a firearm or to buy ammo. Here, let me read to you from the article. It says, "Listen, I'm a gun owner. And the fact is that the underpinnings of the entire message of the Conservatives is once we know where the guns are, they're going to come and take your guns away," which is not at all part of the Canadian psyche or possibility, except that actually has happened. Anyway, later on in the article, Trudeau went on to say, "I was raised around guns, raised around shooting. We have guns up at our country place. They were registered until they were stolen in a break-in a few years ago, but it is something that is part of my life." Okay, so Trudeau describes himself as a gun owner, although some of his family's registered firearms were stolen up at their country place in Quebec. You know, as a responsible firearms owner myself, I would much rather have seen those same guns stored at Trudeau's primary residence, but he's within the law, albeit moderately irresponsible to not have done that. Maybe Trudeau has like a firearms butler or something that looks after his guns for him. I'm sort of unfamiliar with the lifestyles of the rich and the slow-witted. But as a self-described gun owner back in 2011 when this article was written, Trudeau would have to have taken that PAL course and have been aware of the requirements to show your license to purchase a gun or ammo. So why doesn't Trudeau seem to know anything about it now? This is a very important point. Please remember it. That all brings us up to now. Last week in the Globe and Mail, Justin Trudeau's office claimed he doesn't own any guns. The article says neither the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, nor NDP leader Jagmeet Singh own firearms, their offices said. Did he never really legally own guns in the first place and was just telling another one of his crazy stories to make himself seem like a relatable, normal person? Did Trudeau pull some strings and just get a license given to him without taking the appropriate courses? And is that why he's just so clueless about what is required for gun ownership here in Canada? Were all of Trudeau's guns stolen? If not, how did Trudeau transfer the remaining ones to someone else without knowing he had to check for licensing first? I've got a lot of questions that nobody in the mainstream media seems to be interested in asking Justin Trudeau. And I think before Justin Trudeau slaps some more rules on law-abiding people, he needs to prove to the rest of us that he followed the gun laws himself. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. Did you know that I have my own full-length show here on The Rebel? It's aptly called The Gun Show. Sometimes we even talk about gun laws. To get access to my show and the rest of our amazing premium content, become a Rebel subscriber today.